Alright all, and welcome back to a new video and another preview video looking ahead at Saturday's action between Warwick, Fairyhouse and Market Rasen. We've got a few races from all three cards and hopefully we can back a couple of winners in the process. The midweek video there for the Lowlands and Ace race went down very well, thanks to all that got involved. Unfortunately for myself, wasn't one of the great days tipping wise. I took on an Ergamine and Bob Ollinger. I took on an awful lot of the favourites and it was a favourites type of day. As I've said many a time, I'm no pro at this game. But do try to make a couple of bob, and you know you can't just put up favourites all the time. I look to try and find winners at bigger prices and hopefully can do so. It's turned full circle. I've had a decent enough day today, backing a couple of winners over in Fontwell over on Twitter. As you can see, still repping the Horse Racing Buddy Club jacket. We had a runner there the other week. Actually, yeah, it was last week in Drummond Lad at Dundalk, and he came sixth. He ran very well on the back of a bit of a layoff where you really hope he might come on for that run. He's being entered up in a few 45 to 65 handicaps coming up. I think there might be a win in him soon enough. So if you want to get involved and maybe, you know, taste a bit of horse racing ownership, we got a bit of prize money for sixth last week. So get in touch with myself over on Twitter or through this, or get in touch with Kieran. The link to all of his stuff and to get in touch with him will all be in the description as per the usual. But moving on, I'm going to split up the weekend. I'm going to do two separate videos. I'm going to do the Saturday cards like I am today, which is kind of a mix and match. And then on Sunday at Punchestown, I'm actually going to do a full day preview with all 7 races. I know there's a few very good races. Hopefully, we'll see tomorrow morning Envoy and Asterion Forlange getting entered up against each other. Envoy certainly down to run. Hopefully Asterion Forlange is too, and we can see that matchup. But by the time the declarations are done tomorrow morning, I'll probably hopefully record the video tomorrow afternoon and get that up on Friday, so you have the 2 videos to go to war with over the weekend. Just letting you know how I'm going to do it. Starting off though with the Saturday action, that 3-mile novice chase at Warwick, the Grade 2 race at 150. I won't cover because it's cut up into a 3-runner race. There was, I think, 10 or 11 declarations, but it's cut up into a 3-runner race. It seems to be between Next Destination and Fiddler on the Roof. I really couldn't care less, to be honest, about the race. Fiddler on the Roof is a horse that's probably burnt my fingers a couple of times. Next Destination, I think, was maybe a little bit flattered. You know, I actually wouldn't put up off anyone having a couple of bob on Golan Fortune. If he ran the exact same way he ran in the Quarter Star Novices Chase, he actually could cause a shock at the 3, but not a race to be involved in, and not a race I'll be particularly... It's like the Protector at Mezir des Obeaux race last week. It wasn't one that captured my imagination. However, the 225 does, the Leamington Novices Hurdle, and this race is actually stacked up. An awful lot of the well-fancied horses for this race have been declared, which is great. At near enough the top of the market, I couldn't put anyone off Make Me a Believer for David Pipe. I think he's a really nice horse. I think he's 9-2 best price at this stage. It's just maybe a little bit... Yeah, I personally think he's maybe a point shorter than he should be. I'd have loved to have seen him at 11-2. I think he's a very good horse. I think you could upgrade his win last time out at Cheltenham over 2 miles, beating any news, because he is a horse that looks like he needs a trip. He was second behind Bear Gills at Lingfield. That form has been well advertised since as well. So he's a very nice horse. Wouldn't put you off backing him whatsoever. But my selection comes at a double figure price, and it's a horse called Lord of Kerak at 12-1 for Aidan Coleman and Ollie Murphy. Aidan Coleman is riding very well at the moment. Ollie Murphy is finally hitting a bit of form. It's been a bit of a stop-start season for Ollie Murphy, but he's finally getting a bit of joy from these horses. And Lord of Kerak, I think, is one of his better novice hurdlers, and I think they'll be really angling for him to run very well here on Saturday. He was only 3 lengths behind Admiral or Adramel at Sandown earlier in the season in a maiden hurdle, and at that time, Ollie Murphy's horses were in very poor form. He didn't jump very well and still came within 3 lengths, still came almost with a winning run at the back of 2 out. And I thought that was very impressive given the circumstances. Adramel's gone out and won since. This Lord of Kerak has gone out and won since and absolutely devoured a Jack Barber horse called One Man Upmanship, who pressed the likeable, sizeable Sam pretty close last weekend at Wincanton as well. So the form looks pretty robust, and Ollie Murphy's a local to Warwick. It wouldn't have surprised me if this was the plan ever after that Untitled win, and I think he's far too big a price in comparison to Adramel. I think they'll be closer between them on Saturday. I really hope it will be. One is 3 to 1, one's 12 to 1. And I'm always going to take the 12 to 1 in that option. And I think he's a fair each way price. The 3 o'clock is the classic chase over 3.5 miles or 3 mile 5. A very tough race. I don't have a particularly good record in it either. And I take a chance on the big grey horse in this, Achille, for Venetia Williams. Charlie Deutsch has decided to ride this horse instead of the other Venetia Williams runner, which is a good positive in the first place. He's 12 to 1 again. I think it's a fair each way price. He's a very good horse, but just has been very fragile recently. Only ran once last year when finishing second in a long distance handicap at Cheltenham. He jumped super, he travelled super in that race, and I'm hoping for a similar enough showing. He's the type of horse that's gone handy before in the past, which I think could be seen as being a positive around Warwick. If you're handy and get into a good jumping rhythm, a bit like what they, I suspect, will attempt to do on Captain Chaos, I think you could really set a few alight in this, because it's a track that if you're behind and you start making mistakes, you're never going to make it up, because the fences come thick and fast, especially down the back. You'd want a decent enough jumper, and I think this horse is a lovely jumper. As I say, he's a progressive horse in his very injury-ridden career, and if he comes back, he's been very good fresh before, and if he comes back well, fit and firing, he's off a likeable mark. He's a likeable horse. I just think 12 to 1, I'm willing to take a chance each way. Moving on to the 3:35, the Pertemps Network Handicap Hurdle Qualifier, a race I wouldn't usually be getting involved in, because these Pertemps qualifiers are a bit of a nonsense, to be honest, because you're rewarding horses for not winning. One horse, though, that I think that might run very well is a horse called Imperial Alcazar, and he's been well found in the market. He's best price 7 to 1. It's not one of the great each-way prices, but it's an each-way price nonetheless, and I'd take it in a race like this. 4 places being paid out by some bookmakers. I'd take that off a mark of 139. I think he might be well found in this. He was very close to beating Protectorat last year. He actually got beat, then got it in the steward's room, and then got it taken away from him again. It was that race at Cheltenham on New Year's Day. That's a decent enough level of form. They've always thought an awful lot of this horse at Fergal's, and I think it hasn't quite gone to plan, because I think they were thinking of sending him over a fence this year, but it hasn't worked out. I think they're just going to pull stumps on that and maybe pursue these handicap hurdles for now. And I think he might be a decent enough bet in this. He ran all right on his reappearance at Haydock behind Main Fact when finishing mid-div. Again, he was well found in the market that day, and he's been dropped a pound or two in the process. So off a 139, I think he's got a chance, and I'd be disappointed if he wasn't in the first 4, to be honest. At 7 to 1, I think it's not a bad price for a race that's often very competitive. The 4th race we're going to cover, we're going to head over to Fairyhouse for three races. We've 3 at Warwick, 3 at Fairyhouse, and 3 at Market Rasen. And I really... The 4th race I'm going to cover overall is the Dan Moore Handicap Chase, a very hard race to get to the bottom of. Chatham Street lad, if you take his form on face value from both Cork and Cheltenham, he's asserting this at 5 to 2, but can you do so? I'm not so sure. The shunter potentially is thrown in if he can fence a little bit better than he did last time out in a graded race at Cork. He then obviously went back over hurdles to win the Greatwood. He's potentially well in. And Tukas, front view, like, will the weekend be the day? Will the Grand Annual be the day? It's very hard to know with some of these horses. One horse that will be running to his merits, I believe, is a horse called Bel Ami De Sivola, who's been a long-standing horse to run in these sort of races. He was formerly trained by Noel Meade when owned by Gigginstown, and he obviously had issues later on in his career. He won actually a course and distance handicap in April 2018. He was also very close in a couple of handicap chases at Leopardstown, most notably when I got him beat by a head, I believe it was, in the 2 mile handicap chase on Stephen's Day at Leopardstown a couple of years ago at a decent price. He's gone to Gordon. He then went and ran in a point-to-point, I think over 3 miles. He would have never stayed 3 miles. He was pulled up that day. But back for his first rule start for Gordon Elliott, he was second in a course and distance handicap behind Impact Factor. Now, he's well beat that day, but he ran very nicely off a low mark of 128. He sneaks in here off 130 with a £2 rise. Brian Cooper in the saddle. Brian's riding quite a low weight here, which he wouldn't often do. So I think this horse has a chance. He's in LeBake's colours. Remember the mad grey that unfortunately is no longer with us, LeBake. He's in those colours, the big orange silks, and I think he might go well at a price, 20 to 1. There's 5 places going about with a few bookies. I think that's a fair price to get involved with, and hopefully he'll be ridden to pick up pieces, and hopefully he will go and do just that. The next race is the Beginner's Chase, the race after the Dan Moore handicap. It's the 250 at Fairyhouse, and my nap of the day comes in this race, and it's a horse I think I've napped before, and he's becoming a little bit of a cliff horse. I'd want to see a win out of him soon enough. It is Port Stanley for Jesse Harrington. Robbie Power back in the saddle. Obviously, Robbie's decided to now stick in Ireland for now, just because of the COVID protocols, and he's had a fairly iffy season. Tizard's horses haven't been firing over in England, and he hasn't probably ridden as many winners over there as he thought he might have done when he committed to run or to ride over there back in October time. He's back now, and he'll be riding a fair few of Jesse's, I'd assume, including this lad. He was just touched off by Front View last time out. He's previously bumped into both Easy Work, who's unfortunately no longer with us as well, and a Nergamine in his other 2 Beginner's Chases, which looks very robust form. The 2 of those runs were very good. The run behind Front View was very good, just got nabbed by a horse that was trying on the day when he hasn't been trying in days gone by. I think he really should be collecting on the weekend, and hopefully he can do the business. You'd have to be a bit concerned. Very similar profile horse to Front View is Alpha Mix for Gavin Cromwell. Surely they'll be winning something with that horse pretty soon. Probably to get into a festival handicap, he'd want to be going close on the weekend, but hopefully Port Stanley can get his deserved day in the sun over fences. The 325, a rated Novice Chase over 2 mile 5, and a horse I've liked and backed a couple of times this year is Bois Des Clamart for Liz Doyle and Sean Flanagan, running off a mark of 125. He's top weight in this rated Novice Chase, but I think he's always shaped as if he could be better than this. He just needs to jump a bit better. He won on his Beginner's Chase debut at Tramore earlier this season before unseating at 3 out in a handicap over 2 mile 5 at either Punchestown or Fairyhouse. I've gotten this wrong before because I put him up as one of my Racing TV Tipstar selections because it was after the race. He unseated at 3 out. I thought he was going to win that day. He then went to Navan in a competitive handicap chase, just didn't jump well enough and came mid-div behind Cross My Mind of Arthur Moore's. He would need to jump better, but it is in a much lower grade here. As I say, he's now dropping into a grade where he's top weight, as for he's been running the last couple of times all very low weight in better standard of races. Hopefully he can get that confidence booster into him. I'm not sure what type of price you're going to get about him. I wouldn't mind seeing an each way price. I don't think you'll get one though. I'd say you might get maybe around the 3 to 1, 4 to 1 mark about him, and I'm more than happy to play him at that price. Moving over to Market Rasen, we've got 3 from Market Rasen, as I said before. Starting off with the 12.55, a maiden hurdle over 2 mile, 2.5 furlongs. Again, a race that hasn't been priced up yet, and a horse I assume to be quite up there in the market. As I say, I'd assume is a horse called Grandad's Cottage for Ollie Murphy and Fergus Gregory. As I said earlier, Lord of Kerak, Ollie Murphy's horses have just turned a corner now. He's banging in horses, winning nice races. I've won a few on him the last few days. He had a lovely mare win today at Fontwell. Port of Mars won a Beginner's Chase as well earlier in the week at Hereford. So I've had a bit of luck with him this week. I'm going to repay that luck by hopefully backing a couple more winners with him on the weekend. Grandad's Cottage, look, he ran a few nice races in bumpers when quite well found in the market. He won an Irish point to point. He then finished 5th on his hurdling debut up at Carlisle behind a horse called Gaston Phoebus, and he was really disappointing that day over 2.5 miles. He was sent off evens favours. An awful lot was expected, and I think he was beating the guts of 30 lengths. But that being said, next time out at Doncaster, he was nowhere in the market. I think he was 28 to 1 over 2 mile 5. and he travelled into the race like an absolute good thing before just being outstayed by a horse I like a lot called Bob Hope or No Hope for Kim Bailey. He ended up finishing 5th, only beaten 4 lengths. I think this step back to pretty much the guts of 2 mile 3 furlongs will be absolutely ideal for this horse, and I'd really be disappointed with Ollie's now kicking on and turning the screw this year. I'd be really disappointed if he wasn't bang there. As I say, I'd assume he'd be in the top 2 or 3 in the betting. The 240 is a competitive 3 mile hurdle, and it's a race, the Pertemps qualifier at Warwick. If you watch the finishing line at all, I was on there this week. Very, very good of the guys to allow me come on and asked me to come on, but I quite liked Des Flos for the Pertemps qualifier at Warwick. I thought he'd run a good race, and he's running in this race instead, and he's 7-1. I think it's not actually a bad price. When you look at Des Flos, 3 of his 4 career wins have all come in January, so he obviously likes this time of year, and this time last year he beat Royal Pagaille by 12 lengths over fences. He is a good horse. He was tailed off last time out behind Time Hill, but he's up against a completely different standard of horse on Saturday at Market Rasen, and 7-1, I'm just going to take a chance that January might be his time of year, and it might just click for Des Flos at Market Rasen. And the final race, the 3:15, the Mayor's Bumper. An awful lot's been made of this race, with Grangee hopefully coming over for Willie Mullins. And I'm going to take Grangee in this race at 2-1 that's available with Ladbrokes at the moment, 7-4 with other bookmakers. She is having to give a fair bit of weight away to her main market rival, Eileen Dover. But this Grangee potentially is a very, very good mare. I know they were humming and hawing between running Grangee or running the mare that won at Naas on Wednesday in this Market Rasen race. They ended up leaving the mare at Naas at home, and she obviously won by 10-15 lengths under Jodie Townend. So this is the type of mare we're dealing with. She ran very well at Galway. Form of that race hasn't actually kind of been tested too much. The second horse, the Tom Taff horse, had finished second behind Chemical Energy, who looks a really smart horse for Gordon Elliott, before finishing second to Grangee. So she hasn't been seen since. Petty Dam's been, a little bit inconsistent, as has Mighty Megsy, but they were beaten out of sight by Grangee, so you don't really know what the level of ability is. I think this has been a long-term plan for her, and I think if they manage to get her over, Nico de Boinville's booked to ride. I hope she takes the world of beating at 2-1 and maybe just gives the weight away to Eileen Dover. Probably one I wouldn't be going mad on, just because that Eileen Dover for Pam Sly could be an excellent mare, but Grangee would be for me in that. So there you are, 9 selections for Saturday's racing, and I really hope you did enjoy the video, and if you did, please do give it a like and subscribe to the channel down below. We're just over 2,300 subscribers at the moment, which is absolutely brilliant. Thanks to all that are new, thanks to all the regulars, and obviously let me know your main selections for Saturday's racing. I'll have the Sunday card at Punchestown up tomorrow afternoon, please God, where I'll be going through all the races from there. You'll either be up tomorrow afternoon or Saturday afternoon after racing. I'll see, just in terms of, I want to maybe get a few more prices available before I do that video, but hopefully you'll have that as well, so you'll have the 2 videos this weekend. You might let me know whether that's something you'd like me to do for every weekend, do a Saturday video, do a Sunday video. Let me know in the comments down below, and hopefully we back a couple of winners like we did today at Fontwell. Wasn't so good at Naas yesterday, I'll hold my hands up to that. All of us have losing days. You've got to be man enough to accept that. I was back on the bandwagon today, and hopefully might back a couple of winners tomorrow before getting into the weekend. So until the next video, which will be the Sunday preview, hope you stay safe, stay well, land a few bets in the interim, and I'll see you guys then. Cheers.